Imagine you're in a library surrounded by thousands of books, but no catalog or organization system. Most books are on the shelves, but some are in random piles everywhere. If you're looking for one specific book, you'd have to wander the library, checking book by book until you find it. This is incredibly time-consuming and frustrating. Now, if that library was well organized with clear signs and a catalog, finding that specific book would be much easier and faster. Are you enjoying these videos? Consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. In software development, a code base can be huge and very complex. A good code base is like having a version of the library that's well organized. Developers can quickly find the code that they need to work on. Maybe they need to add new features, fix bugs, or just understand how the code works. In the absence of good navigation, developers can waste a lot of time just looking for the right place in the code, which can be frustrating and slow down the whole process. In a team, it's even more important because everybody needs to be able to find and understand each other's code easily. Navigation is about making the life of everyone who works with the code easier and more efficient, just like a well-organized library makes finding a book you need easier. Say, for example, you're in a small team or just yourself. You want a simple, clear structure. You want to keep the code base simple and avoid over-engineering anything. You should include documentation in the form of comments. However, external documentation won't be as critical. You want to use version control, even if you're working on a solo project. Versioning is critical with any code base. It will help you to track and revert those changes if necessary. In a small team, regular code reviews are a must. You should review each other's to ensure consistency and a shared understanding. One of the positive side effects of code reviews by colleagues, in my opinion, is that it provides an opportunity for your colleagues to see what you've done and where it is. So in a way, people keep up with changes as those changes are done. When you're solo, obviously you can't, but then again, you are a single point of failure. Let's say you're in a medium-sized team. You might want to make sure that you have a modular design. Break the code into modules or services to help teams work independently on different project parts. You want to help developers to avoid stepping on each other's toes as much as possible. Detailed documentation becomes more important, and you should invest more in it. Both inline comments and external documentation are essential. When it comes to coding standards and styles, you should have guides. Establish and adhere to coding standards and style guides to maintain consistency. You should implement automated testing to catch issues early and ensure that changes don't break any existing functionality. In the case of large teams or enterprises, you should have a highly modular and scalable architecture. Use architecture like microservices for those very large projects. This will allow the team to work on those services independently and concurrently. The intent here is to ensure that teams are not stepping on the toes of other teams. Both your inline and your external documentation should be comprehensive and extensive. You may want to consider using tools for maintaining and updating this documentation. A good example is a tool that can potentially read comments in the codes and produce some of the external documentation accordingly where it makes sense. You should implement rigorous review processes and use tools for static code analysis to enforce standards. Any deviation from standards could mean confusion and will mean wasted time and resources. At this scale, it could add up to some significant costs. You should automate the build, the testing, and the deployment processes to ensure that you have smooth and frequent releases. You likely have such a number of modules or microservices that it makes sense to automate it. It will help you spot coding errors and bugs and also have consistent and smooth deployments. Last but not least, an absolute must is the training and onboarding documentation for new team members. How many of us have been thrown into a code base and essentially been told, just read the code and figure it out? And this is a mistake that I've made as well. Live and learn. This will also mean a colossal waste of time. It is very frustrating for new people that join your organization, just like it's very frustrating for people within your organization to constantly have to answer the same questions repeatedly. If your onboarding documentation does not explain where and how to get the code, run it, and navigate it, then it should be updated so that new developers ask questions regarding exceptions rather than the obvious. Did you like this video? Give it a thumbs up. Are there any subjects that you'd like to see? Let me know in the comments.